So let me tell you one of the scariest moments of my life. We were in the hospital. We were getting ready, Kelly and I were getting ready for the birth of our son. And labor was progressing very, very slowly. And our doctor came into our room. She was doing her rounds, and she comes in to check on Kelly. And she's putting her hands on different parts of Kelly's stomach, just pressing here, checking this. All the while, she's just chatting me up. She's just looking at me, chatting me up. And then mid-sentence, she just stopped. And she went silent. And the look on her face went from conversational to alarm instantly. And she looked up at the monitor on the wall and she hit some button, and within 15 seconds, all these different doctors and nurses just started sprinting into our room. They're yanking cords out of the wall, and they start pushing Kelly in her hospital bed out of the room. And they don't say a word to us. We have no idea what's going on. And Kelly looks at me as they're pushing her in her bed out the room. And she's looking at me for reassurance. I'll never forget the look on her face. Like it was a combination of confusion and fear. And she's looking to me for reassurance. She's looking to me for some kind of answer, and I can do nothing. I think that was probably the most helpless I've ever felt in my life. So all I can do is I just smile at her to try to reassure her, and I just whispered, hey, it's gonna be okay. Even though I had no idea if it was gonna be okay or not. I had no clue what was going on. In fact, I was starting to freak out on the inside, but I couldn't let her see that. 3 nurses ran up to me and they started putting a surgical gown on me. They're throwing it over my clothes. They're putting booties over my shoes. They put a hat on me. And when they start to put a mask on me, I finally just yelled out, hey, can somebody please just tell me what's going on? And one of the nurses stopped. She stood up and she looked me square in the eyes and she said, we lost the baby's heartbeat. We're rushing your wife to surgery right now. At that moment, it got real. I just remember praying, God, you got to take care of this. You got to take care of this. You got to make this right. Started running down the hallway, chasing the doctors that were sprinting her to surgery. And when I got to the doors of the OR, they stopped me. They wouldn't let me go in. And I was like, okay, this is honestly where I got a little aggressive. And I said, okay, you know what, that's great. I appreciate that. You just need to get out of my way and let me go in there. What do you mean I can't go in there? That's my wife in there. That's my soon-to-be son in there. You got to let me go and let me in there. But they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't move. In fact, they started to make a barricade in front of the doors. So I started asking more questions. Just give me some kind of answer. Nobody's telling me anything. And the more questions I asked, the more they dodged my questions, which just made me more irritated. And everybody's voice starts elevating. Everybody's yelling over the top of each other, and finally a nurse yells out, be quiet, listen. She turns her head and puts her ear up against the door, and we're just standing there listening. And all of a sudden you could hear beep, beep, beep. It was really faint, but it was a heartbeat. We waited there for a few more minutes, and then they did let me go in. And when I walked into the OR, there was our doctor. She was basically on top of Kelly, holding a scalpel over her stomach, staring at the heartbeat monitor over here on the wall. She never stopped looking at it. And she said to me, without looking to me, she said, I can have this baby out in 30 seconds if I need to. She was about to do an emergency C-section with no anesthetic. She was gonna do it. So we just stood there and waited and waited and waited and just beep, beep, beep. I just said to her, hey, please take care of my wife and please take care of my son. Becoming a parent is a life-changing moment. And in that moment, I was pleading with this doctor. I was pleading with her, please change this moment that's about to change the rest of my life. Because one way or another, my life is going to be changed on that night. Please change this moment that's going to change me. Now, thankfully, my son was born. They didn't have to do an emergency C-section. We sat in that OR with her on top of my wife with a scalpel on her stomach for 45 minutes, and she didn't move. But she didn't have to do it. Sawyer was born, he was safe, he was healthy, Kelly was fine, but I really don't know. My heart's racing right now just telling that story. I don't know if I've ever been that scared. I do know that I've never been as desperate to have a moment in my life changed. And you might be able to relate with that, like wanting something to change. Like maybe that's where you're at right now. You just need something to change. Well, there's two guys. Let me show you two guys that can relate with you. Here's the first story. It's in John 4, starting in verse 46. That's Jesus, as he traveled through Galilee, he came to Cana, where he had turned water into wine. There was a government official in nearby Capernaum whose son was very sick. And when he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged Jesus to come to Capernaum to heal his son, who was about to die. Jesus asked, will you never believe me unless you see miraculous signs and wonders? He's not talking to the official, he's talking to the crowd that kept following him, wanting him to do stuff. The official pleaded, Lord, please come now before my little boy dies. I know what that feels like. Then Jesus told him, go back home. Your son will live. And the man believed what Jesus said, and he started home. While the man was on his way, some of his servants met him with the news that his son was alive and well. He asked them when the boy had began to get better, and they replied, yesterday afternoon around 1 o'clock, his fever suddenly disappeared. Then the father realized that was the very time Jesus told him, your son will live. And he, as an entire household, believed in Jesus. I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? Now Capernaum, where this guy's from, Capernaum is about 20 miles from Cana. So this guy gets up and walks 20 miles to ask somebody else to heal his son who's about to die. And you would do the same thing too, like I would too. And if there was somebody that you were really close to, somebody that you love, your kid, your spouse, a good friend, a family member, you would walk 20 miles if that was the way that they would be healed. You would do that too. That's what this guy's doing. He's got urgency to see this happen. He's urgent because he knows that if he doesn't do anything, his son is going to die. He's not going to sit around and be passive. He's not going to wait. So he does something about it. He's got urgency. He's also got some pretty strong faith. I mean, to get up and walk 20 miles to go ask a guy that you've never met, somebody you've just heard about, ask a guy where there's no guarantees to heal your son. I mean, that takes some faith to walk all that way. I mean, we may say that we believe Jesus can take care of things. We may cognitively believe that, but it's an entirely different thing to act as if he can. That's faith. It takes a lot of faith to walk 20 miles there and back, and really the ultimate driver for it was love. He loves his son. Love is always outward. Sin will make you turn inward. Sin will always make you turn inward and focus on you, but love always pushes outward, focusing on everybody else. That's why he's urgent. That's why he's acting on faith, because he wants to see his son healed. He loves him. So the question I got to ask myself reading this story is, am I willing to walk? Am I willing to figuratively walk 20 miles? Do I have the same kind of urgency and faith and love that this guy in Capernaum had? Do I have the same level of desire to see other people healed by Jesus? And this doesn't have to be physical healing. It's any kind of healing that only Jesus can bring to someone, and every single person needs to be healed in some way. You and I are included. We all need some kind of healing. Now, if you're a Christian like I am, I mean, this one's for us. We say that we have faith, but where's my faith really at if I'm not willing to introduce people to the source of healing and change? I mean, forget walking 20 miles, forget that. Like, where's my faith really at if I'm not willing to introduce my friend and tell my friend about my story and how Jesus is changing me? Where's my faith really at if I'm not willing to do something small, like invite a friend to church or invite a friend to my group? Where's my faith really at if I'm not willing to disciple someone I know, which is what you and I are all called to do in the first place? Now, here's the truth that I think that we can easily miss. Faith is a gift that will grow when you act on it. Faith is a gift that grows when you act on it, always when you act on it. Like, if you want to have great faith, like the kind of faith that maybe you see in other people that you admire, Or the kind of faith that has some boldness to it. It's got real strength. You can tell this is legit. Or the kind of faith that Jesus says will move mountains. If you want that kind of faith, you've got to act on the faith that you already have, however big or small it is. And don't downplay yourself. Like, man, my faith, it's not that strong yet. I don't know a whole lot. I don't know if I'm ready. But once I get to this level of faith, when I get here, oh yeah, then I'm going to act on faith. Let me just be straight up and direct with you. No, you won't. If you wait till you get to this level of whatever, of anything, if you wait till you get to this level, then whenever you finally do get to that level, you're going to have more excuses of why you have to be to at another level before you act. Act on the faith that you have right now, and it will grow. But I think we just get into this lull where we expect our faith to grow and get stronger without us doing anything. Like, you can't get physically stronger if you don't go to the gym, right? Right? Okay, good. We got that, all right? But there are people that will try to sell you products and processes and pills that say you can get stronger without ever working out your body. We know that's a joke, and that's a massive waste of money. But at the same time, we can get to that same mindset with our faith. Faith will not grow, it will not get stronger if we don't act on it. Like this dude from Capernaum. He had just enough faith to start walking. He just had enough faith to start walking so he could ask Jesus. But do I have enough faith to sit in my living room and just ask Jesus in prayer, hey, will you take care of this person? Or will you bless this person? Or this person's in need. Do I have enough faith to sit in my living room and intervene for people, or just ask for my own needs? After this guy walks, he hears what Jesus says, that his son who's about to die is going to live, and he believes him. That's big belief. But do I have enough faith to believe Jesus' word right here where he says, Matt, I'm never going to leave you or forsake you? And then after he believes what Jesus says, he walks back. And when he walks back, he doesn't go to somebody else to try some plea with somebody else to save his son. He doesn't go try some crazy experiment. He's not hedging his bets. He hears what Jesus says. He believes him. And he says, okay, that's all I need. And he walks 20 miles back. But is my faith big enough to believe Jesus when he says, hey, you don't have to worry about what you eat or what you're going to wear because I got you. But every time this guy acted, his faith grew a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. It started with just walking, and then it grew a little bit more to asking, and then it grew a little bit more to believing and walking back. Faith is a gift that grows when you act on it. And not only that, this guy got to see his entire family believe in Jesus because of that. Like, here's one of the cool things, that if you act on your faith and you let it grow and you let it keep getting stronger, it's going to spread and change other people. Like, one of the assumptions we make is that if I want to see someone close to me come to faith in Christ, then what I've got to do is I've got to sit down with them at my kitchen table or at coffee, and I got to share in really meticulous detail, break down my faith for them. That's the only way they're going to come to faith in Christ. But one of the most underrated ways to see someone in your circles of influence come to faith in Jesus is simply you acting on yours. Like, when you act on your faith, it will grow and it will change you, and then it will spread to everybody else. You act on your faith, it will grow, it will change you, and it will change people around you. So are you willing to walk like this guy did? Are you willing to take your next step? Now, most people want other people to have help and healing, right? Like, we're all in that camp. We want to see other people helped. We want to see other people healed. I mean, that's the driver while we're doing Level Up. But let me ask that for you. Do you want help? Or do you want healing? Because a lot of times we don't look at ourselves, or we don't think it's possible. There's another guy that can relate to that too. His story's in John 5. After this guy in Capernaum, afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. And inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the pool of Bethesda with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, all of them lay on the porches. And one of the men laying there had been sick for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him, he knew that he'd been there for a long time. He asked him, would you like to get well? "I can't, sir," the sick man said, "for I have no one to put me into the pool where the water bubbles up. Someone else gets there before me." Context is needed right here. Here's some context. The sheep gate was one of the major gates in the city walls. It was one of the major entry points into Jerusalem. And right by these gates, inside the city walls, was a pool. And the cultural legend at the time was this: the water in the pool would begin to bubble up at different times. The legend was that was angels stirring up the water. The belief was that if you were the first person in the water whenever it started to bubble up, then you would be healed from whatever kind of sickness or disability you had. So now you've got hundreds of people with all kinds of sicknesses, all kinds of disabilities, always laying right there next to that water, nonstop, just waiting for it to bubble up so they could be the first person in the water to be healed. That's what's going on. And so when Jesus shows up at this scene, he sees this dude laying there, guy that can't walk. He knows that he's been there for a long time, and he walks over to him and he says, "Hey," no small talk. He doesn't ask him where he's from. He doesn't say, "Hey, who's going to win the game today?" It's a bye week, so we know we're safe, right? He just walks right up to him and he says, "You know what? Hey, do you want to be healed?" Which seems kind of like a dumb question, doesn't it? Or maybe a little insensitive to say the least, because the guy can't walk. He's been there for almost 4 decades. Of course he wants to get healed. But the reason why Jesus is asking a question that seems obvious is because it's not. It's not at all. Back in this time and in this setting, someone like this guy who's laying at the pool, if he's healed, he actually could lose a decent living. All the things that have been given to him, I mean, he'd been able to make a living out of it that wasn't terrible. So as crazy as it might sound, someone who's sick and has a disability here who's lying by this pool, their situation could be more preferable that way. I mean, that's not downplaying their sickness at all. That's real. Nobody wants that. But this guy's lying in the shade next to a pool. He can see out in the street. He sees men and women doing workout in the hot Middle Eastern sun, busyness all going on while he gets to lie by a pool in the shade. Again, not downplaying that sickness at all, but if he's healed, he basically goes from having no responsibility at all to having responsibility he hasn't had in almost 4 decades. He goes from other people giving him what he needs while he lies in the shade next to a pool to now he's got the ability to take care of himself, and he's going to have to do that. That's why Jesus' question is not crazy and it's not insensitive. He's wanting to know if this guy wants what will come with him being healed. Because after 38 years, this has become a way of life for this guy. He's gotten used to it. And if something's become a way of life for you, something that you've gotten used to, something you're able to adjust to, even though you know it's hindering you and holding you back, if it's become a way of life for you and you've gotten used to it, do you want it to be changed? So really another way to say this question that Jesus is asking, he's really asking, do you want to be changed? And this question is very much on the table for you and I right now. Do you want to be changed? It's really easy to read past the story and just pass it by and think, oh, that's a really cool story about healing. Jesus heals this guy who can't walk. Spoiler alert, that's what happens. We'll get there in a few minutes. Really great. Physical healing, that's awesome. Wow, incredible. This story really has nothing to do with physical healing. This is all about change. That applies to all of us. So do you want to be changed? When Jesus walks up, it says that he knew this guy had been lying there for a long time. So my question to you is, where have you been laying for a long time? Like, what has you stuck? It's another way to say it. Maybe it's something that happened to you. Maybe it was a long time ago too. And if that's you, you know what it is. Maybe it's a destructive pattern that you're in, or have been for a long time, or something you get out of for a little bit and go back to. Maybe anxiety has you stuck. Maybe it's the lack of confidence. Maybe it's a particular sin. Maybe it's a broken relationship. Where are you stuck? Whatever that is, that's what needs to be changed. But sometimes, and maybe you're not like me, sometimes when I'm honestly answering this question, when Jesus says, hey, Matt, do you want to be changed? Sometimes my answer is no. Like, which seems pretty ridiculous, right? Because I cognitively know that if Jesus is offering any kind of change for me, it's going to be for the better, to say the least. But sometimes we're afraid. Like, sometimes we're hesitant to be changed by Jesus, and maybe it's because we're afraid of what we might lose. The assumption we make about ourselves and about other people is that people don't like change. You've heard that before? How many of you heard that people don't like change? Anybody heard that before? Guess what? That's not true. It's not true. People don't have a problem with change. The problem they have is what they might lose in the change. That's the real issue. Whenever there's any kind of change in your life, there will be some level of loss. Like, you might lose something that's completely insignificant. You might lose something that you didn't even realize you were losing. You might lose something that needs to be lost, and you might lose something that means a lot to you. There is a level of loss that comes with change in a person's life. For this guy right here that Jesus is talking to, what he's about to lose is a way of life that he's gotten used to, lying in the shade next to the pool while people give him things he needs to survive. That's what he's going to lose. But what he's going to gain, he's going to gain back responsibility. He's going to gain back purpose. He's going to gain freedom, a lot of it. And he's going to gain a life where he gets to act instead of being stagnant. But he's got to lose what's holding him back. So if you answer yes to this question, do you want to be changed? What are you going to lose? That's going to be different probably for everybody. What are you going to lose? What do you need to lose? Maybe it's a certain lifestyle. Maybe it's a toxic relationship that you know is not good. You know it's not good for you, but you need to lose it. Maybe it's losing a relationship that is good. I don't know what it is for you, but there is a level of loss that comes with change. But here's the great news. When it comes to Jesus, everything you lose will never be greater than what you gain. It will never be greater than what you gain. The gains with Jesus are always greater than the loss, even though the loss is hard and the loss is real. Or maybe we're hesitant and we're afraid of the unknown. Because when there is change, there's a level of unknown that comes with it too, right? 38 years of living this way. This guy had gotten used to it. He knew what to expect. He knew what was coming. But if you've got something that you've gotten used to, a lifestyle that you've gotten used to, maybe it's part of a life that you would never pick for yourself and you don't even want for yourself. You know what to expect. Maybe if it's an abusive relationship and you're stuck in it, maybe part of it is because you know what to expect there. You don't know what it's going to be like outside of that. Or maybe it's what you do with money and you know how, hey man, I can just give my life to money and I'm going to let it control me and own me. I know what to expect there. I don't know what it looks like to give or be generous. The unknown can be scary at times. There's all different kinds of things that can hold us back when it comes to Christ. All different kinds of things. Loss, the unknown. Or maybe for you it's anger. Like maybe anger's holding you back. Where anger's just become a normal way of life for you. Now, anger is a natural emotion. It absolutely is. But what can happen with anger is that if we don't watch ourselves, anger can actually get a hold of us and it can start to control us if we let it. And then anger that's not resolved eventually turns into bitterness. Someone who's bitter is usually a person who has unresolved anger. It just becomes a way of life. Like maybe something happened to you a long time ago, or maybe it was yesterday, and you are justifiably angry for it. Your anger is justified. But over time, that anger just gets a hold of you and it becomes a way of life. And if anger becomes a way of life for you, it will hold you back. It's going to hold you back from joy, and it's going to hold you back from peace. I promise you that. It's going to cap your relationships. It might even end your relationships. Because somebody who lives a life of anger, or someone who's controlled by their anger, is a person that other people will keep at arm's distance or just choose not to be around at all. The problem with that is you're called to impact other people, and God has a specific plan for you and how to do that. Anger, if that's a way of life for you, it's going to hold you back. So my question is, do you want to be changed? Or maybe it's a destructive pattern. Could be drugs or alcohol. Could be pornography. Could be food. Could be an addiction to social media or Netflix. Could be gossip. I don't know what it is, but whatever that pattern is, it will continue to make you a slave to it and dismantle your life. And any kind of pattern like that will hold you back from who God has made you to be and the purpose He has for you. So my question is, do you want to be changed? Or maybe something awful has happened to you. Maybe something awful is happening to you right now. From when you were a kid, or when you were a teenager, or a young adult, or middle age, maybe you're a senior. And this thing that happened to you, somebody else did to you, it's caused serious pain and serious damage. And now it just has it's got control over your mind. So you relive it a lot. Your thoughts go to it often. You're triggered and reminded about it often. And it feels like every single time that happens, it just reopens that wound and never allows it to heal. And it's become a way of life for you. And you would never have picked this thing, that whenever it happened to you, it's awful, it wasn't your fault. You would have never picked it to have a hold on your mind, but it does. And now this hold that it has on you, it's holding you back. So, do you want to be changed? Do you want to be changed? I can't, sir, the sick man said. For I have no one to put me in the pool when the water bubbles up, so someone else always gets there ahead of me. Jesus told him, stand up. Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Instantly, the man was healed. Instantly, the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and he began walking. This question that Jesus is asking you is always, always, always an invitation to something better, to something more, to something meaningful, even though it might be harder. Everything is harder than lying in the shade next to a pool. Everything is. Like, it's much easier to hold on to anger than it is to seek peace. It's much easier to hold on to resentment than it is to forgive. It's much easier to hold on to pain from a past wound than it is the pain you'll go through to let it be healed. It's much easier to give into a moment of addiction because you know it'll feel good just for the moment instead of giving into the pain of withdrawal, which only leads to freedom. Everything is harder than a way of life you've gotten used to. But if you're honest with yourself, you know what you've gotten used to isn't what you want. You know it. And you know it's holding you back. In this pool where Jesus is talking to this guy, the name means something. Bethesda. Bet means house. Heza means God's loving kindness. Bethesda literally means the house of God's loving kindness. So, this pool where Jesus is at, asking this question, he's not asking it just to this guy. This is a question on the table for you. Do you want to be changed? The place where he's asking is just another example and a tangible expression of God's loving kindness to you. But we tend to look for change in all the wrong places. We look for change in different pools. I mean, change is talked about all the time. You hear change all the time. We need to change this. We need to change that. This would be good if we change this thing over here. Change is talked about all the time, especially in the middle of an election cycle. We're always talking about change. Anybody else sick of getting those text messages? Jeez, like, come on. I'm going to get sidetracked. We're always talking about change, but we just tend to look for it in all the wrong places. Like, real life change is not found in mysticism or urban legends like this guy thought. Real life change is not found in a religious checklist. You can modify your behavior for a little while, but eventually, I don't care how strong and disciplined of a person you are, eventually you're gonna revert back to your real self and realize there was no real change there in the first place. Real life change is not found in politics, it's not found in cultural narrative, and it's not found in a sexual revolution. Real life change is only found in Jesus. So what other pools are you looking for that are end up going to be nothing but a waste of time for you? Or are you looking for other people to make this change happen for you? Man, I need somebody else to carry me down and put me in the water. Are you waiting for other people to make change happen for you? Don't look for change in some kind of pool that you find in this world when the real and only source of change is standing right here and he's asking you if you want it. So what do we do with that? Jesus said, get up. That's a good start. Get up and listen to him. Just like this guy did with his mat, just like the guy from Capernaum did, and he walked home. So whatever needs to be changed for you, wherever you're stuck, whatever's become a way of life for you, whatever's holding you back, I don't know what that is for you. Here's what I would tell you to do as your pastor. Get up. Listen to what Jesus says. Follow him in faith, and then act in obedience on what he says. And for you, that could be baptism. Maybe he's saying baptism. We had people baptized this morning. We got a bunch more later today. Baptism is that step where you say, all right, I believe you, Jesus. I believe in you. You are God. You did die on a cross. You did walk out of a grave for me. You are now not only my Savior, but you're my Lord. I'm all in. I want to start walking with you. Baptism is that first step. So maybe that's your next step too. We're going to do baptisms on December 11th, the last episode of season 1 of John. We're doing baptisms. There's a couple people already planning on doing that. And then there's going to be some of you, because we're going to open it up, there's going to be some of you that come here on that Sunday morning that aren't expecting to leave wet, but you're going to. I'm not going to force you to do that, but I'm going to put it in front of you. Maybe that's your step. Maybe that's what he's asking you to do. And watch how Jesus will change you. Or maybe it's time to ask for forgiveness from somebody. Start with God and then ask for that person that you've offended or you've sinned against. Maybe it's time for you to forgive somebody else. Quit holding on to it. And he's telling you to do that. If you want to be changed, he's saying, do that and watch how Jesus will change you. Or maybe it's time to repent of something, some sin that you keep holding on to or keep going back. It's meant confessing that to God, confessing that maybe to other people in your group or people you know, because there's only healing and freedom in that. You don't have to confess it to everybody. You don't have to broadcast your mess to everybody. But I'm going to confess it. I'm going to repent of it. I'm going to turn around and watch how Jesus will change you in that. Or maybe it's to get connected. Connected here. Let's just start here, because you have to be in community to grow. No, nobody does this by themselves. The Christian life is not a life of isolation and individualism. It is a family, it is a collective group. We do this together. So maybe it's you getting connected into a group here. Or maybe it's on a serving team just starting here on Sunday mornings. We have needs across every area of our church Sunday mornings because we keep growing. We got more people to serve. We need people to step up and serve, and watch how Jesus will change you in that. Or maybe like what Neil said earlier, it's giving. Man, we've talked about tithing and how this is one of the biggest roadblocks, but also one of the biggest accelerations to discipleship and personal growth. When you say, you know what, everything I have isn't mine, which it's not. I'm going to give it back to you and worship God and watch what you will do with it and watch how you bless me in that. So I'm going to take that step and I'm going to start tithing. I'm going to start giving and watch how Jesus will change you. Or maybe you have no clue. Like, man, I don't know what it is. I got confused. I got some questions. I'm confused. I want to talk to somebody. I want to pray about something. Man, that's awesome. Stop by New here afterwards. Don't do this alone. We're here to walk with you. We'd love to do that. And maybe you're thinking, I really don't know what it is that needs to be changed. My body feels pretty good. Like, I don't know. I promise you that if you do a deep dive on you, just do a deep dive on you right now. Do it this week too. What needs to be changed? What needs to be changed? If you pray that too, Jesus, what needs to be changed? You do that reflection on yourself, you're gonna know what needs to be changed. And then, as your pastor, I'm just a messenger here to offer the same question Jesus is asking you right now. Whatever that thing is, he's asking you right now. Do you wanna be changed? Jesus, I pray that you would change us, that you would heal us in whatever way that we need, whether it's physical healing or emotional healing or spiritual healing or relational healing. Would you bring hope? Would you bring healing? Would you bring change? I love how you pursue this guy in this story. And I know that's just an example of how you're pursuing us right now, asking us the same question. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be changed? Maybe we're scared to say it, but yes. Make this place a place of change where lives are changed, futures are changed, generations are changed, and let us go out into the world and act on our faith and act on that change and let other people be introduced to you because of it, Jesus. It's only through you, man. We're your servants. Bring change. We love you. It's in your precious name. Amen.